friends, and thanks for joining me. And recently there was a small Facebook poll. It was somebody who basically asked, hey, what is your most regretted debt? And so that is what spurred on this video. A whole bunch of the people who had responded in just this exact way. So basically, about 8 people said that their credit cards were their number one most regretted debt. 2 people said car, 2 people medical, 2 people tax. 1 person each for legal and personal loans. 4 people said their mortgage, and 47 people responded and said their student loans. That is a lot of people. If you add up all of the other debts and combine them and then double it, you still don't even come close to how much the student loan one was. So by far, the number one most regretted debt is student loans. So let's talk about maybe some of the reasons why that is, and then maybe some of the alternatives as well. So frequently this is called the game of loans or even predatory lending. And I believe the number one reason for that is because not only do student loans have really high interest rates, or at least in my opinion they do, but also it's very easy for a small amount of this debt to balloon into huge amounts, because once you don't pay, there's all these penalties. If you defer them, then all interest is compounding that entire time. And so when people look at the paperwork and they're like, oh, $60,000 doesn't look like that much. But once they get through school and then they take a little while to get a job, before you know it, those loans are $100,000. And then as you're trying to chip away at them, they can take, this is another reason, a long time to pay back. So yeah, that's a lot of the reasons. And then honestly, I believe the number one reason why student loans can be a bad choice, or why people regret them a lot, is because they aren't bankruptable. So even if you were to declare bankruptcy to try to get rid of all of your other debts because you're just drowning in debt, you cannot ever get rid of your student loans that way. So yeah, this makes it very, very difficult of a debt to try to dig yourself out of. You either have to have, one of these loopholes where you have a government job and they'll forgive you for them if you work there 10 years, or just different things like that, different debt forgiveness, things that can come up, or just paying them off. Those are the only ways to get rid of them. So I can honestly see why these student loans are so regretted. So let's move on to the ways that we can avoid this debt. So the number one way to avoid student loans is to not go to college. Now I understand a lot of people are probably like, hey, but that doesn't make sense. We need, some kind of education to get into, the job that you want. And that may be true. However, I have a couple of articles and some statistics that I would like to read to you really quick. And so this is from the Washington Post, and they say in an article that about 51% of college grads have jobs that don't require a college degree at all. 51%, so over half, just slightly over half of all of the people who have gone to college and gotten a degree end up with a job that doesn't even require a degree. Oh, it gets better. Then it says that only 27% actually have a job that is closely related to their major. 27%, that's just about 1/4 of all the college grads actually have a job that is closely related to their major, leaving the other 73% working in either different jobs or different fields entirely. That's kind of scary. And then the best one I found from a different article, 96% of young college students don't end up completing school or follow through with a job in that field. That means out of all the 18/19-year-olds who are just recently out of high school and go to school, 96% of them, they don't either end up following through with their school, or if they do end up following through with their school, they don't end up with a job that's similar to what they were hoping to get or in that sort of a field. I mean, wow, that is a staggering statistic right there. But when I stand back and I look at my own life and all of my friends from high school, many of which I stay in contact with even today, many of them, it's true, they really don't still have a job. They went to school to be a fashion designer and that only lasted a couple of months. Or they got, into college and then for 2 years, another friend of mine was a music major. She decided that wasn't going to get her any kind of a good job, so she changed it. For the next 2 years, it was something else. I can't remember what it was. And then in the end, she ended up going to nursing school. And so now she's a nurse. So I believe that the reason the statistic is so high, that 96% don't end up in a job of their field that they were hoping to or finishing their school, is because a lot of these kids are young and inexperienced, and I'm not pointing out or, making fun of anyone. I was that person too. At the time when people were like, oh, what do you want to do with your life? I was like, well, if I went to college, which I'm not intending to, maybe I would become a nutritionist or something, because I was really into like food and health and this kind of stuff. Well, honestly, that would have been a miserable failure because there's no jobs in that industry. I mean, how many nutritionists have you met in your life? Probably not very many, because there aren't really all that many. So I fell in this category too. Too young to really know what you even want out of life, and too inexperienced in life to really know where the jobs even are, to try to target those areas to make sure that we're learning, a skill that's going to be sought after later. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is obviously due to changing majors, people who don't use their degree again, or even just drop out of college altogether. So yes, obviously these statistics are pretty terrible. So if you're not going to go to college, what are some other, alternatives to ways that you can still make a decent wage without having to take out all these student loans to go to college? You could go to a trade school, and yes, it is true that you can get, student loans for a trade school too, but frequently trade schools are much less expensive, and so many people can achieve going to, this trade school and being able to get, a job in that field without having to go into that same debt. I was looking up some statistics not long ago, actually here very recently, and there are the vast majority of the jobs that we have, at least here in the US, are actually trades. And it's the biggest, growth. It accounts for 40% of the growth in 2017 are all trades jobs. And yet they still make a very decent wage. And I looked it up recently, but I don't think I still have the article on here, so I can't quote who it was from. But I read that 98% employment rate for the trades industry, which means only 2% unemployment rate, which is lower than the average for the other employment. So yeah, not only is there a lot of jobs in this area, but they pay a lot of money too. So a trade, a trades job is really a good route to go. It really is. However, let's move on to, the last section of it, and that is if you really do want to go to school, if you really do want to go to college, because there are a lot of good jobs that, require college, and so I don't want to say that college is always a bad choice. It isn't. There are some, good reasons why people will go to college, and there are a lot of, jobs that require that. So if that is, the way that you want to go, you could just do college more smart. So do well in high school so that you can get, scholarships and grants and things like that for your, academic, achievements, and even in sports and things, so that your school wants you and they will pay you to go to that school, so you don't have to go into so much student loan debt in order to get to go there. So that's a good choice. Go to college while you're in high school. There are some cool programs around here, and I know that they're, actually nationwide, where you can actually go to college while you're in high school, and you can even start your junior year. So you can feasibly leave high school with an associate's degree. And while you're going to college in high school, you're getting both high school credit and college credit at the same time, and it's completely free because it's, part of, you're still in high school. The state pays for it, and so you don't have to pay a dime. And so that's definitely a good way to either get a head start on your degree, or even get the degree that you're even looking for, so that as soon as you leave high school, you're good to go into the job market, which would be fabulous, right? That's what I'm hoping to do with my kids, but they're not quite there at that age yet. Okay, so choose a cheaper school, something like a community college, at least in the beginning. So get some of your core classes out of the way, things like that. Or even an in-state school. These are good choices as well. Just choosing cheaper schools make it to where you don't have so much of a burden on how much you have to pay. And so it's much easier to either get less student loans or none at all, which is obviously great. Working while you're in school is a good choice too. That way you can cover a lot of these expenses. That way you don't have to borrow so much money. Another good choice. Eat and live cheaply. Obviously, I'm a huge advocate for the frugal lifestyle, so, find frugal housing, even live at home, just find ways to go cheaper on your food. Everybody knows college students live on like mac and cheese and ramen noodles, which isn't the best, most healthy choice, but there are definitely ways that you can get, your food for cheap and, still achieve your goal of, trying to do so in a healthy way. Get used books and things like that. And then, of course, the biggest, obvious thing you should do in order to make sure that you're doing school smart is to choose a major wisely. Make sure it's in an industry where there's a lot of growth and where there is a lot of, demand. So you don't want to end up going to college and then end up not being able to find a job because there aren't any jobs in that, field that's, much of a demand for that job. So definitely choose your major wisely. The number one most regretted debt and how to avoid it. So hopefully, again, this video was helpful to you. I'm Frugal Green Girl, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.